There are stories of success, and then there are stories that redefine what success truly means. And the journey of Mark Wahlberg is one of those rare transformations that feels almost impossible until you realize it actually happened. Because this is not the story of a man who had everything handed to him. This is the story of a man who lost his way at a young age, who made mistakes that could have destroyed his future forever, who faced darkness so early in life that most people would never recover from it. And yet somehow, through discipline, belief, and relentless effort, he rebuilt himself into one of the most powerful and respected figures in Hollywood and business. And when you look at his life from the outside today, you see the fame, the wealth, the success, the blockbuster movies, the businesses, the fitness, the family. But what you don't immediately see is the struggle, the pain, the turning point. That changed everything. Because Mark Wahlberg was not always the man people admire today. He was once a troubled teenager growing up in Boston, surrounded by crime, chaos, and bad influences, dropping out of school at just 14, getting involved in drugs, violence, and street life, and by the age of 16, he had already been arrested multiple times, eventually serving time in prison for a serious offense, and in that prison cell, with nothing but his thoughts and the weight of his choices, something inside him shifted, something that would later define his entire life, because that moment forced him to confront a truth that many people avoid their whole lives, that if he didn't change, his story would end before it even began. And so, instead of letting his past define him, he made a decision, a powerful, life-altering decision, that he would take control of his future no matter how difficult it would be. And when he walked out of prison, he didn't walk out as the same person. He walked out with a purpose, a hunger, and a willingness to do whatever it takes to build a better life. And that is where the real journey begins. Not in Hollywood, not on a movie set, but in the quiet, unseen moments where he started rebuilding himself piece by piece, turning to fitness as a way to discipline his body and mind, waking up early, training relentlessly, staying focused while others around him continued down destructive paths. And slowly but surely, opportunities began to appear, first in music as part of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, where he gained attention and fame, but even then, he knew that was not his final destination, because deep inside, he wanted more. He wanted longevity. He wanted respect, and so he made another bold transition, stepping into acting, a move that many doubted at the time, because transitioning from a controversial music persona to a serious actor is not easy. But Mark Wahlberg was never afraid of being underestimated. In fact, he used it as fuel, proving himself role by role, starting with smaller performances and gradually earning credibility in Hollywood until he delivered powerful performances in films like Boogie Nights, The Departed, and The Fighter, each role showcasing not just talent but growth, discipline, and an understanding of storytelling that comes from real-life experience. And what makes his journey even more inspiring is that he didn't stop at acting. He expanded into producing building businesses, investing in fitness brands, restaurants, and various ventures, turning himself into not just a star, but a brand, a businessman, and a leader. And throughout all of this, he never forgot where he came from, never lost sight of the mistakes that shaped him, instead using them as reminders of how far he has come. And that is what makes his story so powerful, because it teaches a lesson that success is not about where you start. It's about the decisions you make when everything seems against you. It's about discipline when no one is watching. It's about choosing growth over comfort and purpose over excuses. And if there is one thing you can take from Mark Wahlberg's journey, it is this, that your past does not define your future. Unless you allow it to, that even in your lowest moment, there is an opportunity to rise. That transformation is possible no matter how far you've fallen, and that greatness is not reserved for a select few. It is built by those who refuse to give up, who show up every single day, who believe in themselves even when the world doubts them, and who are willing to do the hard work long after the motivation fades, because at the end of the day, the story of Mark Wahlberg is not just about fame or success. It is about redemption, resilience, and the incredible power of a second chance, a reminder that no matter where you are right now, you are only one decision away from changing your entire life forever. And What makes this journey even more powerful is what happened after the world already started calling Mark Wahlberg a success. Because most people believe that once you make it, the struggle ends, the discipline fades, and life becomes easy. But for Mark, that was never the mindset. In fact, that's where his real philosophy began to take shape. A philosophy rooted in consistency, sacrifice, and an almost obsessive level of self-control. Because he understood something that many people ignore, that success is not a destination, it is a daily commitment. And if you stop showing up, you start slipping back. And so even at the peak of his fame, when he could have chosen comfort, he chose structure, waking up at extremely early hours, sometimes as early as 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, beginning his day with prayer, reflection, and intense workouts, not because he had to, but because he knew that discipline was the foundation that rebuilt his life in the first place. And if he ever lost that, he could lose everything, and this level of commitment began to reflect in every area of his life, from the way he approached his roles to the way he handled his business ventures, because Mark wasn't just acting anymore. He was building something much bigger, something long-lasting, producing hit shows like Entourage and Boardwalk Empire, investing in fitness and wellness companies, co-owning restaurant chains, and constantly expanding his influence beyond Hollywood, turning himself into a multidimensional powerhouse. And yet, despite all of this success, he remained grounded. In a way that is rare in the entertainment industry, always emphasizing family, faith, and responsibility, often speaking about how becoming a father changed his perspective completely, shifting his focus from just personal success to creating a legacy that his children could look up to. And that's where his story becomes even deeper, because it's no longer just about escaping a troubled past. It's about building a meaningful future, about proving that true success is not measured by fame or money, but by the impact you have on the people around you and the example you set for the next generation. And if you look closely, you'll see that every chapter of his life carries a lesson, from his early mistakes teaching accountability, to his rise in music showing the importance of taking opportunities, to his transition into acting proving that reinvention is always possible, and finally to his business ventures and personal life demonstrating that balance, discipline, and vision are what sustain success over time. And perhaps the most inspiring part of his journey is that he never tries to hide his past. He speaks about it openly, acknowledging his mistakes, not as something to be ashamed of, but as something that shaped him, something that gave him perspective, humility, and strength, and that honesty is what connects his story to so many people, because it reminds you that you don't have to be perfect to succeed. You just have to be willing to change, to grow, and to keep moving forward no matter how many times you fall. And in a world where people are constantly looking for shortcuts, instant success, and overnight fame, the life of Mark Wahlberg stands as a powerful reminder that real success is built slowly, through hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. That the road to greatness is not easy, but it is always worth it, and that no matter how far you've gone down the wrong path, you can always turn around and create a new story, a better story, a story that not only changes your life but inspires others to believe that they can do the same. Because at the end of the day, the legacy of Mark Wahlberg is not just about the movies he made or the businesses he built. It is about the message he represents, that transformation is real, redemption is possible, and that the power to change. Your life has always been in your hands, waiting for you to take that first step. And as the years continued to unfold, the evolution of Mark Wahlberg became less about proving people wrong and more about proving something deeper to himself. Because there comes a point in every great journey where external validation no longer matters as much as inner alignment. And for Mark, that shift was profound. It was no longer about escaping the shadow of his past or even maintaining his place in Hollywood. It was about becoming the best version of himself in every sense, mentally, physically, spiritually, and professionally, and that's where his life began to take on a different kind of intensity. A quieter, more focused determination that wasn't driven by fear or doubt, but by purpose, because he understood that real greatness is not loud, it is consistent, it is disciplined, it is built in the small, unseen moments that no one applauds. And this mindset started influencing the way he approached not only his work, but his identity, turning routines into rituals, turning habits into standards, and turning goals into responsibilities.